You're standing in an alley that doesn't appear on any royal map. The walls press in close mud brick, sun-baked, crumbling at the edges. There's no glaze here, no blue tiles, no lions or dragons or any of the decorative artwork that tourists imagine when they think of Babylon. Just brown walls, brown dust, brown water trickling down a central gutter that smells like everything you'd expect. A woman pushes past you carrying a basket of something, vegetables, maybe. Or bread, and doesn't apologize. She doesn't even look at you. You're in her way, and this alley is barely wide enough for one person, let alone two. Behind you, someone's shouting. Not angry shouting, transactional shouting. The kind that happens when you're negotiating through a wall because there's no room to stand face to face. This is Babylon, not the Babylon of the Ishtar Gate or the Hanging Gardens or Nebuchadnezzar's palace. This is the Babylon where most people actually lived. The part that doesn't make it into the histories or the reconstructions or the museum exhibits. The part where 200,000 people crammed themselves into mud brick houses and tried to survive in a city that was designed, primarily, to glorify a king. You're in the outer city, beyond the inner walls, beyond the temples and the palaces and the wide processional streets. This is where the workers live, the laborers, the craftsmen, the people who built the monuments everyone remembers, and then went home to places no one talks about. And if this part of the city failed, if the food didn't arrive, if the water stopped flowing, if the infrastructure collapsed, the monuments wouldn't matter, because the outer city is where Babylon actually functions. You step out of the alley into something slightly wider, a street, technically, though calling it that feels generous. It's maybe 10 feet across, unpaved, the ground packed hard by decades of foot traffic. The buildings on either side are 2 stories, sometimes 3, flat roofs, small windows, doors that open directly onto the street with no setback, no courtyard, no buffer between private and public space. This is the Eridu Quarter, one of dozens of residential districts radiating out from Babylon's ceremonial center like spokes from a wheel. Each quarter has its own character, its own temples, smaller ones, neighborhood shrines, its own markets, its own reputation. Eridu is working class, not the poorest district, but not wealthy. The people here work with their hands, bricklayers, potters, weavers, dockworkers from the Euphrates. What surprised me is how dense it is. You expect ancient cities to have space, open courtyards, gardens, room to breathe. And maybe the inner city does, but out here, every square foot is claimed. Buildings share walls. Alleys dead-end into other alleys. You navigate by landmarks, a specific door painted red, a corner where a date palm grows through someone's roof because the layout doesn't follow a grid. It's organic, chaotic, built by people who needed shelter and built it wherever they could. You pass a well, public, a stone rim, a rope, a bucket. 3 women are drawing water, filling clay jars. The well is deep. You can hear the bucket hit the water far below, the sound echoing. One of the women is pregnant. Another is old enough that her hands shake as she lifts the jar. They don't speak. They just work efficiently, because this is something they do multiple times a day, every day, and have for years. Water doesn't come to your house in the outer city. You go get it. You carry it. And if you live on the 2nd floor, you carry it up a narrow staircase in the dark because there are no windows in the stairwell and oil lamps are expensive. You're moving west now, toward the river. The Euphrates cuts through Babylon, dividing it into eastern and western halves. The inner city, the palaces, the temples, the Ishtar Gate is mostly on the eastern side, but the western side is where much of the population lives, and the bridge connecting them is one of the only ways to cross. You can hear the river before you see it, a low, constant rush. The Euphrates is wide here, slow-moving, brown with silt. It's the reason Babylon exists. The river provides water, transportation, irrigation for the fields that feed the city. Without it, this would be desert. The bridge is wood and brick, supported by stone piers sunk into the riverbed. It's wide enough for carts to cross, which means it's constantly crowded. You step onto it and immediately regret it. The press of bodies is suffocating. A man is leading a donkey loaded with baskets. The donkey stops. Everyone behind him stops. Someone yells. The donkey doesn't care. Eventually, it moves and the flow resumes. From the bridge, you can see the docks. Dozens of boats, flat-bottomed river barges, mostly unloading goods, grain from the fields upstream, timber from the north, stone, because Babylon sits on an alluvial plain with almost no stone, and everything monumental has to be imported. The docks are loud, men shouting instructions, ropes creaking, wood thudding against wood. This is Babylon's supply line. The river brings everything the city can't produce itself. And what it can't bring by river gets brought by road, caravans from the east, from Persia and beyond, carrying spices and metals and luxury goods that end up in the palaces while the people in the outer city never see them. You're on the western side now, in a district called Tuba. It's poorer than Eridu. The buildings are smaller, more weathered. Some have walls that bulge outward. The mud bricks softened by rain and time. There are fewer wells here, fewer public spaces. The streets are narrower. You pass a workshop. The door is open, and inside, a man is shaping clay on a wheel, pottery, bowls, jars, cups. His hands are covered in wet clay, and his foot pumps a pedal that keeps the wheel spinning. An apprentice, a boy, maybe 10 years old, is stacking finished pieces in the corner to dry. The workshop smells like wet earth. Pottery is everywhere in Babylon. It's how you store grain, water, oil. It's how you cook. It's how you transport goods. And it's all made by hand, in workshops like this. By craftsmen who learned the trade from their fathers, who learned it from their fathers. The economy of the outer city runs on small-scale production. No factories, no mass production, just individuals making things, selling things, trading things. Next door, there's a weaver. You can hear the loom, a rhythmic clacking sound. Linen, probably. Flax grows in the irrigated fields outside the city, gets processed into thread, gets woven into fabric. The weaver sells it to merchants, who sell it to whoever needs it. Clothing, sacks, rope. Everything in Babylon starts as raw material and gets transformed by hand. You're near the old city wall now. Not the outer wall. Babylon has multiple walls, concentric layers of defense, but one of the inner walls, built generations ago and now surrounded by the expanding city. The wall is still standing, but it's no longer a boundary. People have built against it, shops lean on it in some places. They've carved doorways through it. There's a market here, not a grand market like the ones near the temples, a neighborhood market, a few dozen stalls, temporary, set up each morning and packed away each night. You can buy bread here, dates, onions, lentils, fish from the river, salted and dried. A butcher is selling mutton. flies buzzing around the meat despite his efforts to wave them away. The prices are negotiated, loudly. A woman is arguing with the bread seller, gesturing at the loaves, insisting they're smaller than yesterday. The seller denies it. They go back and forth. Eventually, they agree on a price. She pays in grain, small measures of barley, weighed on a hand scale. Coins exist, but barter is still common in the outer city. You trade what you have for what you need. What strikes me is how fragile it all feels. The market depends on the fields outside the city producing enough. The fields depend on the irrigation canals being maintained. The canals depend on the river flowing and the state organizing the labor to dig them. If any part of that system breaks, if the harvest fails, if the canals silt up, if the state collapses, the market empties, and when the market empties, people starve. Babylon has experienced this before: sieges, famines, political collapse. The outer city suffers first and suffers most, because the inner city, the palaces and temples, has stores. Reserves. The outer city lives month to month. You're moving south now, toward the temple district, not the grand temples near the ziggurat, but the smaller temples that serve the outer city. There's one dedicated to Ishtar, goddess of war and love, another to Marduk, Babylon's patron god, though this version is a neighborhood shrine, not the massive Esagila temple at the city's heart. The Ishtar shrine is small, a single room open to the street, with a statue of the goddess inside, clay, painted. Not gold or precious stone. People leave offerings: bread, dates, a cup of beer. A woman is praying, her forehead pressed to the ground. You can't hear what she's saying, but the posture is universal: desperation, pleading. Religion in the outer city isn't abstract, it's transactional. You give the gods offerings, and in return, you ask for things: health, safety, a good harvest, a child. The gods are powerful, but they're also negotiable, and if they don't deliver, people get angry. Not publicly, you don't insult the gods in public, but privately, bitterly. Next to the shrine, there's a scribe, a public scribe. He's sitting on a stool with a clay tablet on his lap, stylus in hand, writing something for a client who's standing over him dictating. Most people in Babylon can't read or write. Literacy is a specialized skill, learned through years of training, reserved for scribes and priests and officials. If you need a contract written, a letter sent, a record kept, you hire a scribe. This one is writing a loan agreement. You can hear fragments of it: so many measures of barley to be repaid at harvest. With interest, the scribe reads it back. The client nods. They press their seals into the wet clay, cylindrical seals, rolled across the surface, leaving a unique pattern. It's legally binding. If the client doesn't repay, the creditor can take him to court or take his labor. Debt slavery is common in Babylon. You borrow, you can't repay, you work it off, sometimes for years. It's afternoon now, and the heat is brutal. The sun is directly overhead, and there's no shade in the outer city. The streets are narrower than the processional ways of the inner city, but they're still exposed. Mud brick absorbs heat and radiates it back. The air shimmers. You're in a district near the northern wall. This is where the laborers live. The men who dig the canals, repair the walls, haul stone for the king's building projects. Their houses are the smallest you've seen: single rooms, shared by entire families. No courtyards, no privacy, just four walls and a roof. A group of men is sitting in the shade of a wall, resting. They're covered in dust. Their hands are calloused, their faces lined by sun and labor. One of them is drinking from a clay cup. Another is asleep, propped against the wall. They don't look at you as you pass. Strangers are common in Babylon. The city is too big for everyone to know each other. What's easy to forget is that these men built the Ishtar Gate. They built the walls. They dug the canals. They hauled the stone and the timber and the blue-glazed bricks that make Babylon famous. And at the end of the day, they came back here to the outer city, to houses with no decoration, no luxury, nothing that suggests the grandeur they spent their days creating. Babylon is two cities, the city of kings and priests and monuments, and the city of everyone else. And the second city is larger, much larger, but it's invisible. It doesn't appear in the royal inscriptions. It doesn't get excavated by archaeologists. It's built of mud brick, which dissolves back into mud when the city is abandoned. The only reason we know it existed at all is because you can't have a population of 200,000 living in palaces. You're near the outer wall now, the final wall, the one that defines the edge of Babylon proper. Beyond it, there are suburbs sprawling, unplanned settlements where people who couldn't afford housing inside the city built their own. But even inside the wall, the density is staggering. You climb a staircase exterior, clinging to the side of a building, and reach a rooftop. It's flat, like all the roofs in Babylon. People use them for sleeping on hot nights, for drying grain, for storage, for sitting and watching the city. From up here, you can see the outer city spread out in every direction. Mud brick buildings, packed tight, stretching to the walls and beyond. Smoke rises from cooking fires. You can hear the city, a low hum of voices, animals, movement. Somewhere, someone is singing somewhere else. A child is crying. And in the distance, rising above it all, you can see the ziggurat at Enki, the temple tower dedicated to Marduk. It's massive, maybe 300 feet tall, stepped, crowned with a shrine at the top. It's the tallest structure in the city, possibly the tallest structure in the world. And it's what everyone thinks of when they think of Babylon. But from here, you can see the scale of the outer city. The ziggurat is impressive, but it's a single building. The outer city is thousands of buildings, tens of thousands, housing hundreds of thousands of people. And without those people, without the laborers and the potters and the weavers and the bakers and the farmers and the dockworkers, the ziggurat doesn't get built. The palaces don't get maintained. The city doesn't function. It's late afternoon now. The heat is finally breaking. You're back in the streets, heading toward the Marduk Gate, one of the smaller gates in the outer wall. People are moving in and out. Farmers bringing produce from the fields. Workers heading home after a day of labor. Merchants returning from trade. You stop at a beer house. Beer is the common drink in Babylon, safer than water, nutritious, mildly alcoholic. The beer house is just a room with a few benches and a woman who brews beer in large clay vats. You pay a small amount, barley, not silver, and she ladles beer into a cup. It's thick, grainy, slightly sour. You drink it through a reed straw to filter out the sediment. The beer house is full. Men, mostly, a few women. People are talking, but not loudly. There's a tiredness to the room. These are people at the end of a long day, and tomorrow will be another long day, and the day after that. Babylon doesn't offer social mobility. If you're born a laborer, you die a laborer. If you're born a scribe, you have a chance, but most people are born into the outer city and stay there. It's evening now. The sun is setting and the light is golden, softening the harshness of the mud brick. You're walking back toward the river, and the city is slowing down, not stopping. Babylon doesn't stop, but shifting. The markets are closing. The workshops are quiet. People are heading home, or to the beer houses, or to the temples for evening prayers. You think about the fact that this part of Babylon, the part where most people lived, where the real economy happened, where the city actually functioned, is almost entirely gone. The palaces survived because they were built of baked brick and stone. The outer city was built of mud brick, which melts. When Babylon was abandoned, the outer city dissolved back into the earth. Archaeologists have found traces, foundations, pottery, the occasional wall, but mostly, it's just gone, and because it's gone, it's forgotten. When people imagine Babylon, they imagine the Ishtar Gate, the hanging gardens, which may or may not have existed. The ziggurat, the palaces, they imagine grandeur, permanence, monumental architecture. They don't imagine the alley where you started, the woman carrying a basket, the well where water was drawn, the market where bread was haggled over, the beer house where workers drank at the end of the day. But that's where Babylon actually was, not in the monuments, in the outer city, in the part no one talks about. It's almost dark now. You're standing on the bridge again, watching the river reflect the last light. The city is behind you, hundreds of thousands of people, settling in for the night, preparing to do it all again tomorrow. And you think, how much of what we remember about the past is just the part that was built to last? How much are we missing because it was built of mud instead of stone? Babylon was two cities. We remember one, we excavate one, we reconstruct one. But the other city, the one where most people lived, worked, suffered, survived, that city is mostly gone, and with it, most of the truth about what it was actually like to live here, standing here, listening to the river and the distant sounds of the outer city. You can't help but wonder, what else have we forgotten?